So now let's talk about functions. What are functions? Functions are contains the particular block of code that needs to be executed whenever it is required. If I give you an example of a real word, let's say I want my room to be cleaned whenever I want. What I will do is I will hire a person, a cleaner, and whenever I want him to clean my room, he will come and he's gonna clean my room. So let's have another example, like let's say in a university I want to get the marks of each student. Like each student is gonna give me marks of 5 subjects, and then I'm gonna return and calculate the average of those marks for each student. So is it a good idea to write a code to find the average for individual person? Like if there are 1,000 students and I want to find the average of all the marks of each student, all 1,000 students, then do I need to write the same algorithms of finding the average for 1,000 students? No. Instead, I will define a utility functions, and in that functions I'm gonna send out all the marks of each student one by one. Like I have gotten the marks of first student, 5 marks, and I'm gonna send out those 5 marks to a utility function, and that function is gonna return me the average. And in the next student I'm gonna send out the utility function marks, and it's gonna return me the average. So in the large application, functions really help for multiple tasks. In the smaller programs you might not feel a very real benefit of using functions, but it's very important if you want to be a good developer. Make sure you follow along with me and understand it very carefully. So in order to define a function, let's say I want to define a function that needs to print hello world. Okay, right now it hasn't anything to work really well. So later on I'll be talking and further about defining functions for specific major important tasks. Okay, it seems a very useless task. So defining a function def, and I'm gonna write the name of function with which I wanna call. Like I want to hire a person to clean my room, and I will call him with a name that, hey, you come and clean my room. So print hello. All right, and I will add a colon. Okay, and inside it I will print hello world. All right, so I have defined a function named print hello, and in order to use this function in my any file, any other file, or in this particular file, I need to call that function. Okay, so I will simply come down or and I will write print hello. Okay, so now if I run my file, it's gonna print out hello world. Okay, so how does it working? First of all, our interpreter, Python interpreter, is gonna check out this function and then it's gonna run this line, and it will look that it is a function call. This is where we are calling this function. So it's gonna find out that where is that function. It will find this function, and it's going to come inside that function and execute all the lines of code that we have written within this function. Okay, and it is a good practice to write a return right here, an empty return. Okay, so if I run my app again, it's gonna print out hello world. Return means that interpreter should go back once it execute all the lines of the function. Return should take the interpreter back to where we called our function from. All right, so let's add different other variations for our functions. Like we want to send out a parameter to that function that you need to print out that particular string within this print statement. So let's say that I want to print out ABC. All right, and I'm going to receive that particular value within a variable. So I will take this value within this variable. Okay, and instead of writing hello world, I will simply write the name of that variable that needs to be printed. Okay, so I will just run this file and it's gonna print out ABC. So I will copy and paste 2 more times, and I can change DEF like XYZ. All right, and I will run my file. So it's gonna print out ABC. It's gonna run this line. It's gonna go to this function, and this function will receive this ABC value within this variable, and then print the value of this variable will be printed, and this return statement is gonna bring interpreter back to this statement. And once this will execute it, the next statement will execute, and it will see that it is a function call. It's go back to this function call, and it's gonna receive the value whatever we are sending from here. It's gonna print out that value, and same goes for this particular line. So this is how we can pass different arguments within any particular function. We can pass multiple arguments like value2. All right, and once we will print out value, we can just simply print out value2 from here. Okay, and the sequence of values to be sent should be same as this. If I have sent ABC, and I will write comma, and I will pass 1 2 3. Okay, and this first value is going to be stored within this first value, with no matter what's the name of this variable. Any variable that is at the start, it's going to receive the starting value, and this value is going to store at the second variable that is being written within this function. Okay, so if I run my file now, you might see an error. Okay, so you can see that there is an error right here. The reason is that I'm calling this function and sending out DEF, and this function is not receiving a single value. It is receiving 2 values. Okay, so I need to send out 2 values instead of this single value. Okay, you can see that it printed ABC and 1 2 3 because this is the correct syntax as this one. I am sending out 2 values and it is receiving 2 values. But when the interpreter is coming on the second line, I am sending out the 1 value, but it is receiving 2 values. So I need to send out 2 values again from here. So 4 5 6, and in the third as well I will write 7 8 9. Okay, it can't be a string, it can be an integer or any value, like just like 3 4. It is an integer value. Okay, so I will run my file now. It's gonna print out all the values ABC 1 2 3 from here, and DEF 4 5 6 from here, and XYZ 2 3 4 from here. That is being sent to that function. So this is how we can send out multiple parameters in our function. And make sure you send out the values at the same sequence because this value is not going to be stored in this variable. This value is always going to be stored in the second variable because this is the second value in the calling line. Okay, next let's talk about what is passed by reference and passed by value. Right now all these working function is being sent by passed by value. Means that let's say I wanna remove 2 lines, print hello, and I'm going to define a variable var equals to 1 2. Okay, and I'm going to send out var from here. All right, and this value should be received in value right here, and inside this function I want to change its value, like value equals to the value plus 1. Okay, and then I'm gonna print out the value inside it, and I'm going to print out value here as well, var. Okay, so let's run this file, and you can see that it has printed 13 and 12. So I have written this code to explain you what is passed by value. So what do I mean by it? I have defined a variable and I have set out a 12 value inside this variable. I have sent the value 12 from here using the variable name, and that value will be received within this value. Okay, this variable name can be same as this one or it can be different, and these are both 2 different containers, and inside this function I am changing the value of this value variable. Previously it had 12, and 12 plus 1 it will contain 13, and inside it's gonna print out 13, the updated value, because the calculation is being done first and after we are printing here. And once the 13 is gonna print, it's gonna come back to where we were calling our function, and it's gonna print out var, and it's not going to take back the updated value from here. Instead it's gonna use the old value that we're previously having within this var variable. Okay, because var and value both are different containers. If I give you a real world example, we have a 2 glass of water, and we just one glass have a water, other glass is empty, and we want to put the first glass water into a second glass water. Okay, and we have put the water, and in the second glass water we have also added a few drops of milk. Okay, so we have changed the value of the second glass. Will it affect the first glass? Will the first glass will receive the same value, same water and same drops of milk as we have updated the value of class 2? No, because both are different containers. So we have passed this value inside this variable, and it has updated and printed out the updated value, and this will be having the old value right here. Okay, so one thing more that I want to explain is that this value variable cannot be used outside this function. Okay, means if I write print value, it's gonna give me an error, and it is saying math unresolved reference value, because the value variable doesn't exist outside this function. I need to use the variables that are defined within this function, use within this function. Okay, I can't use the variables within this function. All right, if I write the same variable var from here, var from here, and var update var. Okay, and if I run my app, it's gonna same printing out 13 and 12. No matter the name of variables are same, but the containers are different. Make sure you note down this point. The variable names are same, but the containers are different. If I have sent out 12 from here, it's going to receive out 12, and I have updated this variable inside this function, and it will contain 13. It's going to print out 13, and interpreter is going to be returned back to where from we called that function, and it's going to print out var. And outside this function, it doesn't know that there is a var variable within this function. It's gonna forget that var was updated within this function. It's always gonna check out the variable var that is outside this function, which is right here. Okay, it's gonna print out 12 from here. So this is called pass by reference. Now let's talk this is called pass by value. Let's talk about pass by reference. The single variable are the by default pass by values. The lists are passed by reference. We can also add further objects that we'll be talking about later, classes and objects that are also passed by reference. So what I'm gonna do is print list, and I'm gonna receive it in this list, and I'm gonna define a list in right here. So I will write list, and I will add 2 3 4. Okay, and I'm gonna copy the name of my function and send out my list. Okay, and after that I'm gonna printing out this list right here. So inside it I have defined a list, and list is being sent to this function, and inside this function I want to update any particular value on any particular index of this list. Let's say I want to change list 1 equals to 45. Okay, so if I run my application now, you can see that it has printed 245.4 right here. So this is passed by reference. What's going on here? I am sending out this list to this function, and in this function I'm changing the value of second index with 45. Previously it had 3 and it had 45. Okay, and outside this function, when this interpreter will get back to where from we call this function, uh, this change will also reflect this list variable, no matter it is outside this function, but this has been changed if we have made any change within this function. So this is called pass by reference. Both of these variables refer to each other. If any change made to this, it will reflect within this function. If any change made within this function to this variable, it's going to reflect outside this function from where we are calling. So that's why that change was affected outside this function using this print statement.